Hello, are we on? Are we live? We're live. Look at that. We're live. Now, good morning. Welcome to episode 29, I think it is, of Mortgage News Live, coming to you from, pretty rainy and grey Hertfordshire. Thank you for joining us, and thanks as always to our wonderful sponsors, Empowered. Look at that. I've got an Empowered mug. Love that. So we find ourselves in December where we can already hear the distant arguments of households panicking over who will come to whose for Christmas. What do we get the kids who are already spoilt beyond gratefulness? No, you're not getting a new phone. And the dulcet tones of Shakin' Stevens, Mariah Carey, Slade and Wham wafting over our wirelesses once more. Which does remind me, Paul, it is 6 years ago.
I know.
6 years ago, our wonderful mortgage industry collective released the charity song Take Me Home. And that stayed at number one on the Amazon charts for about an afternoon.
It was. That's our claim to fame.
Yeah. Now that was a Christmas
number one
song.
Yeah. Number one songwriters.
However, throughout the challenges of this year, and we'll come on to this later, it wasn't like the dark days of 2023. I get the sense that despite looking into the often tired and anguished faces of brokers as we discuss the market, all their business, there is a definite cautious optimism that is prevailing, not born of blind hope, but of real green shoots of promise that, if nurtured, could finally lead us all further into the light of a stable market. I didn't write an introduction. That's just me sort of waxing lyrical. So I'm going to go straight to our phenomenally talented number one writing, single writing panel of experts. Joining us are the incredible Peter Stimson, who's the head of products at Empowered. Hello, Peter. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Lisa Campion. Not Liza, I got it right. Lisa, head of national accounts at Market Financial Solutions. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
The astonishingly talented Sarah Tucker, who's a founder, CEO, and incredible singer and voice of The Mortgage Mum. Hello, Sarah. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
You've got such a professional backdrop as well.
It's real.
I know it is. It's really good. It's fantastic. Yeah, and look at Paul. He couldn't afford a backdrop. But anyway, welcome.
These filing cabinets are actually painted on. There's nothing in them.
Welcome to the. You use industry legend. It's sort of often bandied around now, but Paul, you are a bona fide industry legend and now strategic consultant at BTS.
You get called that after like 35 years or something. You're like coming into my 38th.
38?
Either that or has been.
Are you only 38?
Yeah, I wish I was. It's when you talk to some people in the industry and you think, yeah, you weren't even born then.
Well, anyway, I'm honoured to have such an esteemed panel. I can't get my mic right today either. It's like, whose phone is that?
It's here.
Okay. Do you want to get it? Anyway, welcome.
Is it Deliveroo? Is it that time?
It's Deliveroo. It's a breakfast delivery.
Ordering their breakfast in.
So anyway, look, this is a professional podcast. Come on, everyone, concentrate. We are here to talk about 2024. That was the year that was. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it hard? Was it easy? Was it fun? Was it all of those things rolled into one? If you do have any comments or questions, if you're watching, do please engage. Put your questions, put your comments, and we'll try and get to as many as possible and make it as interactive as possible. But first of all, let's start with the obvious. How are you all feeling at the end of the year? Tired, happy, emotional, drained? Lisa, let's start with you. How are you feeling?
Well, do you know what? Actually, I'm pretty chipper. And
Like that. Good.
which I know is probably not necessarily the norm at the moment, because I know people are feeling a little bit jaded after this year. However, from my perspective, obviously, I joined Market Financial Solutions in middle of March of this year, and as a non-regulated lender, we've seen quite a lot of diversity in the market. We've seen lots of brokers, firms, networks looking to diversify the types of business that they're writing. So actually, we've had a really buoyant year. So, but I know that that's not necessarily the case for everybody, but it's been really interesting because we have a very sort of unique offering that can lend itself to this kind of market. So yes, I'm chipper about this year, I'd like to say. So,
Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's not been an easy year. I'm not going to pretend it has been. But for some personal reasons as well, there's been a lot of change in the mortgage mum business. But I do think that's reflective of the mindsets in the market. I think a lot of people, have gone through periods of change and need stability. So I felt like the year has been up and down, shall we say. And I've definitely gone all through all of the emotions. However, at the end of the year, I'm feeling positive, energized, ready for 2025, but also ready for a rest. I do need a little bit of a rest before we kickstart next year.
Yeah, I definitely need a rest. Look at me. I've got bags under my bags, under the eyes. Paul, what about you?
For me, relief this year that I wasn't actually at a lender, sort of working alongside other lenders and distributors. I had a lot of fun helping relaunch a much-loved brand, Private Label, with Robert Bright Star and Serious Guys, which was great. But Peter and I were talking very quickly just before we went live, and I was saying that doing Peter's job is very much like being on the pit wall at an F1 race, or has been. Swap rates have started to stabilise a bit, but back at my time at Lambay, and I'm pretty sure they would have been doing the same thing this year, is that it was daily process of looking at rates, looking where you're sitting in the sourcing system tables and stuff like that, and actually mega stressful with everything that's going on. So relief in the sense that I wasn't doing that this year, but also I've been very encouraged and buoyed up by the tech firms that are working with the mortgage market to assist brokers, borrowers, and lenders, and looking at their energy and ambition. It's fantastic to see. I think that it's really fascinating when you've got, obviously you've got your own view of your own life and your own career based on your own experience, and then when you see people coming in that haven't been in and around it as long as you have, maybe a fair bit younger and full of ambition, it's really brilliant to see, because it helps you reframe your own thoughts and opinions. And of course, looking at the potential numbers, I think the FT said 4.4 million mortgage holders are expected to refinance over the next few years. So they're all going to need advice and assistance. So hopefully there should be a lot that the brokers can get their teeth into, and lenders.
Yeah, good. Peter, how's it been from an empowered perspective?
I think it's a bit of a mixture of relief and optimism. You think from a lender's side, what you're after is stability, really. You're after some sort of, and also from a consumer side, and we didn't have stability for sort of 2/3, 3/4 of the year. You sort of, if you start the first half of the year, you were kind of wondering, is there an election going to happen? When there's an election going to happen? What's happening to rates? Keir Starmer's got a lot of stick, whether that's rightly or wrongly, since he's come into power. But you kind of forget the debacle that was going on before then, and swap rates were going up, fairly rapidly. We were kind of hitting, high fours on the 2-year sort of September time. We were repricing sort of every week. Other lenders were repricing every week. And if you kind of, Paul was alluding to it, we were looking at the rates not just once a day, 2 or 3 times a day to try and work out what was going on and where we were positioning and stuff like that. And it wasn't just causing us problems; it's probably causing brokers all sorts of problems about, do I have to kind of go back and go back to the lender and try and get my client another offer, and go back and get the the case reoffered. That was causing all sorts of chaos in the markets. And the last few weeks, we've started to see some sort of stability because we've seen some sort of direction on finally where interest rates are going. Maybe it's not where brokers want, in the sense of, we're not going to see interest rates, we don't think, going to go much below, or bank base going to go much probably below 4%. But, at least we're getting some sort of clear direction, and swaps are, finally stabilizing the last few weeks. And we think next year, because we're getting some sort of stability in the housing market, we think we're going to get a lot more transactions kicking through on the purchase side. We think we've got a government that's actually committed towards building housing. Whether they're going the right way about it's another matter. But at least there's a strong sense of direction, and there's some stability finally coming through, which is, I think, kind of what everybody wants to see, really. Yeah.
And Sarah, from a client's point of view in the public, what's been your sense of how they've navigated the year and going into the new year? How are they feeling? A bit more bullish? Are they still cautious? What are you seeing?
I think they are really needing confidence, and I think there's certain things that happen in the market that we as brokers know that it's not necessarily going to change everything. Like the Bank of England reduced the base rate, that injects so much confidence though in our clients. And even though we know that actually fixed rates tended to go up a little bit since then, and they were already priced into those deals, we believe. Actually, from a client perspective, we've noticed a lot more people are confident and want to talk about buying property, getting on the housing ladder. So I think that's what everybody's been looking for from a client perspective. And certainly the sort of questions we have is people just not knowing what's going on. So most of 2024, people have just been waiting and wanting stability. And we've only really felt we can give that to them now. Because there has been so many changes, changing government, the US election, the autumn budget. There's been always something coming up that could threaten to change things. And obviously they've witnessed what can happen when Liz Truss did what she did in 2022. We've still been feeling that. We've still been reporting on that all the time, that we're still waiting for the interest rates and things to settle. So I think actually it's only really Q4 that we can really offer that to clients. And I think once Christmas is done, because a lot of people wait, don't they, around this time of year?
Yeah.
It's Christmas out the way, and then we'll start thinking. But certainly the conversations we're having are much more, I'm going to be doing this in 2025, and actually, moving.
Yeah. Elisa, from your point of view as well, is that what people are telling you? You think?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly different from our perspective, because obviously as a non-reg, we're not dealing residential space, but we are very much in the buy to let. And what we're seeing is the more professionalized landlord is definitely still quite bullish about moving into next year. You do have some challenges. Obviously the budget was a bit of a blow, putting in the 5% stamp duty with immediate effect. But that said, there are some alternate ways to purchase properties. And if you think that 170,000 plus buy-to-lets are written in SPV since obviously the phasing out of mortgage interest relief. If you look at that, the SPV is pretty embryotic in its kind of journey at the moment. And what we're starting to see since the budget actually is that more people now, more landlords are starting to look at purchasing actually via share purchase agreements. So you're actually purchasing the SPV rather than the properties within. And because we can do that at Market Financial Solutions on our buy-to-let, sorry about the shameless plug, but because
shameless. That was shameless.
But because we can do that, we've already seen a number of landlords coming to us changing the way that they're purchasing, because obviously the titles within aren't changing. So I think you'll find how landlords purchase will be different. But yeah, they're definitely certainly seeing a more positive sway, I would say.
Yeah.
And look, interest rates, even 12, 18 months ago, the economists were predicting, that bank base would be around 4% by the end of this year. Let's see what happens with bank base, obviously, coming in the coming week. But ultimately, we're edging towards it, maybe not as swiftly as we hoped. But it's certainly moving in the right direction, I think it's fair to say.
And Paul, from your discussions with the people you look after, and certainly on the private label side and that specialist side, what are you seeing as well? Is there, would you echo a lot of that?
I think a lot of opportunity. It's really interesting. I think some of the larger lenders are committing more and more to becoming more tech driven, which is the right thing to do for everyone. But I think you start to see cases fall outside of their umbrella, if you like, that are still really good bets, but just need a bit of manual underwriting. So whereas I'm all for the tech side of things, and as I say, been supporting tech firms this year, I think that from the specialist sector and perspective, it's actually good news, because you will see more cases fall into that, and that's going to require broker advice and support, and distributors come to the fore as well. So I think that there'll be, believe it or not, I think there will be something for everyone next year moving forward. So yeah, interesting.
So I was going to ask this later actually, but I'll come to it now around tech, because every year it seems we go into the new year going, this is going to be the year of tech. This is going to be the year of tech. I've been having this discussion 15 years. And I remember 15 years ago, it was all in the next 5 years, it will all be robo advice. And then that didn't come to pass. But now we have AI, which looks very different and very exciting. And Peter, from your perspective, obviously, as a tech-driven lender, do you think now 2025 will be the year that tech actually really arrives and really starts to make a difference? And how will AI feature in that?
So I think from a lender's perspective, you have to go back to what is the reason tech's coming in for, and it's about margins, and it's about where lenders make money. So if you think about what happened in the last 6 weeks from a lender's perspective, and I did a very short couple of blogs on this, is lenders started lending below swap rate, which I've not seen for a long time, particularly the prime market, where the majority of the business is. So the margins in the market have got wafer thin, absolutely wafer thin, and it's not something I've seen for about 15 years. So lenders are trying to outcompete each other, and the only way they can outcompete each other when you start reaching the bottom of the interest rate curve is on service, is a service proposition piece. And the service proposition piece ultimately comes down to efficiency, and it comes down to who's got the lowest cost base and who can basically offer the best service proposition to a customer. And that comes down to who can get the offer out quicker, who can offer the best proposition to a broker, and that comes down to technology. So, at the moment, a lot of lenders are working on the basis of, I've got a better interest rate than you, I can outcompete you on rate. If you come back to where you ended up in 2020, 2021, everyone essentially had more or less the same product proposition. It came down, and which is where we'll probably end up in the next 6 to 12 months, when interest rates kind of plateau again, which presumably they will when you get down to around bank base of around 4. It's going to come back down to, again, a service proposition and a AI technology proposition, which is about who can offer the best product, who can offer the best proposition, and who can strip their cost right back.
It's user experience, Peter, isn't it? I think that from what I'm seeing, there is a bit of an irony, because I'm embarrassing you now, but I'm quietly hearing that you guys are smashing it from a tech perspective, which is fantastic to see and hear. And the larger lenders out there, that they have so many different systems that they've got to piece together to compete. It's this is where the likes of Empowered start to make a real difference.
Yeah, it's really just looking at all the different components that go into creating the customer journey. So it's not just about us; it's about anybody looking at kind of how do you get a mortgage offer out within 3 to 5 days or even quicker. How do you automate all the process? How do you ask as few questions as possible? It's about looking at every kind of step in the process and reducing your costs and reducing and improving the customer experience essentially. And that's, it's not just for lenders, it's also about, the experience that the brokers provide to customers as well.
And
I will
Sarah,
say,
go on.
I was just going to
Go
say,
on.
I will say as a broker, certainly in the team, their advice is so much more holistic. It's not just about the interest rate, and service stuff does come into it, into what we present to the client. You have option one, but these are the caveats with that lender. You have option two that's not as cheap, but actually their service levels are this, and customers are opting. They're not just driven by rate, they're opting for the service levels because people don't want the extra stress. And there's enough delays in the housing process that people know about, and so they just want efficiency as well.
Builds trust, Sarah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from a lender's perspective, it's partly the service proposition, but it also strips out your costs as well. It's also about, if I'm employing at the moment 100 underwriters to underwrite this because I've got lots of manual processes in the background, can I reduce the underwriters down to 12? Can I reduce them down to 8? Can I strip out a lot of the manual processes I'm doing and replace it with AI? Can I replace that with technology? Can I replace that with a data source? So that's also about efficiencies internally with the lender as well. And then say,
Lisa.
Sorry, Peter. And I think that's the thing about AI. There is pros and cons for it in particular. I mean, from a pros perspective, you've got enhanced fraud detection, for instance. You're right, Peter, it absolutely streamlines any process, can be automated using AI potentially. It can actually eliminate bias, which I'm sure, Sarah, that's something, from our perspectives as females, we can have a little chat about. But it can actually, even from an energy perspective, it can actually bring in efficiencies in the home and in businesses. And bearing in mind, we're moving from an EPC, C or whatever that will be once SAP 11 lands next year. There's lots of things on the pros, but at the same time, it can be expensive to implement, as I'm sure Peter's well aware. So these things can, but obviously there are benefits in the longer term, medium term. It could cause redundancies, but at the same time, it can also bring up new jobs and different areas for people to diversify. And one thing that the system or AI doesn't do, it doesn't have empathy, which is something that's very difficult to train a system to do. So, there are some, yes, it can do lots of things, but we move forward. We're on a journey, I think, with AI that we just need to be cautious of.
Is it only a matter of time, though, that we can train it to show empathy? So I'm just setting out with ChatGPT, I've got one called Mortgage Voice, which basically I've uploaded all my articles and loads of my press releases and etc. And it can now write in my style. And you can ask it to write with empathy or to show empathy. I think it's quite interesting how it's developing, and really, really scary as well. Sarah, from a broker perspective, is there anything you think that's missing technology wise that would really help you do your job? What have we not got right yet?
I think bank statements, going through people's bank statements is still the number one efficiency that brokers always ask. Is there any tech coming that can just upload? Oh, obviously collection of documents as well, I would say, but the uploading and the analysing of bank statements and lots of different accounts and having to collate that and look through it, I think they get very excited about the idea of AI being able to make that process more efficient and be able to, there's no human error actually going through and pulling out things that need analysis, that do still need a human eye, do still need empathy, do still need some level of understanding. I think that those efficiencies, collection of documents and analysing the lengthy ones so that they can do their job better. Obviously criteria as well. There's so many different types of criteria and lenders out there. I know there's tech out there that aims to streamline it. And certainly from an affordability perspective, when I was broking, I used to go on each lender and do each calculator. That's improved since then. But I think there's still more improvements that can come. And I just always feel like the mortgage market is a little bit behind on tech compared to everywhere else. So we get a little bit of foresight in other industries about where tech can take us, but we're always sort of it takes longer because of the regulation, right? And all of this, the regulation and integrating the system seems to be a tricky thing, and actually rolling systems out. This is just from a CRM perspective, from our point of view. It takes years longer than what we want it to be. We want it to be quicker, but tech is never as quick as we think. But certainly, yeah, making their lives more efficient so they can be with the customer and do the bit that they love doing better and easier is definitely what excites the team.
I mean, we do also read bank statements and categorize all the information.
Do you?
Yeah. And then so the underwriter will just get to look at two things that may be out of sync.
Do you use open banking, Peter?
We made the decision not to do it because the amount of people who refused to let us actually have access to open banking.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
From a broker perspective, do you still get clients pushing back when you talk about open banking?
Not really. I haven't really seen people push back, but we haven't really pushed, as Sarah said, we haven't really pushed an open banking type thing where it says this is going to link into your bank account. So we haven't really tested that. I think, would I be a bit not suspicious of it, but a bit wary? Probably yes, I would, even if I'm dealing with someone who's been recommended with me. I mean, although I do give out my stuff left, right, and centre, there are certain things that still make you feel a bit wary about doing. So I'm not sure yet that is quite ready, that clients are quite ready for that.
I think as well, there's a lot of emotional anxiety around the sharing of information in its current form, where they are in control of downloading and submitting, and there's still a lot of anxiety because they don't know what a lender, like Empowered, is going to do with that information, how they're going to react. And even me, who's in the industry, I know when I've applied for a mortgage and I really want it, you get paranoid. You start thinking, they're going to not like the fact I bought some ASOS clothes last month, or and you do get irrational. And from a client perspective, if they don't also have that layer of knowledge, those lender relationships, they do get anxious, and they do need that reassurance that a human being is looking at it somewhat. I think if they knew that there was AI on the other side of those bank statements, I wonder how they'd feel. I'd love to test and measure that with our client base, because I think some would be uncomfortable and be like, no, I don't want it to go through AI. I want you to look at it because I can tell you what that means, or I can explain that. But a robot might just say, like computer says no. And that, I think that's something interesting to sort of uncover with our clients.
It's like fear of being judged as well, isn't it? Sort of fear of rejection.
And being judged coldly. Like if you've got no empathy, like you say, unless you ask it, the AI does not care. It's going to just give you the facts of the situation. And that makes us uncomfortable because we're flawed human beings. And, no one application is perfect. There's always something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I guess there would be some emotional reaction to it, I'm sure, from our clients if they knew it was robo advice on the other side.
I judge everyone coldly, so I find that gets me through life.
I can vouch
really
for that.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Maybe that's where we're going wrong.
Cold, dispassionate,
Oh,
harsh. Yeah. Right. I want to move on. So, where shall I go next? Let's talk about, so actually this sort of follows on quite nicely, and then I'll get to the government. So we have seen a whole host of innovation coming to the market this year. Skipton's track record, Accord's 5,000 deposit mortgage, the entry of Perenna and April long-term fixes, Own New, rate reducer scheme, Nationwide and Halifax's income boost, all those kinds of things. So how have lenders fared this year from your point of view, Sarah? And for everyone else, do you think that we're going to continue to see more innovation? And is this like the start of a new wave of innovative products? So
I love the innovation I'm seeing this year. That's been one of my highlights of 2024, is these creative solutions for the problems that our clients face. And I always judge it by if I can create content on something that I think is going to really blow up or engage or be shared. That's a sign of innovation because it's exciting. And so there is more excitement around our industry. But people don't know enough about these things. They do need all of us to push that information out, to translate it, to make it digestible. I love it. I wait for the next innovative product. I loved also the 5-year fix with a 2-year tie-in. I think that was really good, seeing that. And the own new product, I think, is going to get so much more popularity in the next year or so. Personally, I don't think it's had the boost it needs, and it actually is worthy of, because I think it's a really good scheme. But yeah, we love it. We love anything that we can share that's a little bit different, even if it is just to get the attention of somebody that could be wanting to get on the housing ladder and assumes they can't. They might not actually go for that product, but it's actually just grabbing their attention and letting them know there is lots of solutions out here. Talk to the broking community, because they know things you don't, with utter respect. We know, all the sorts of things that you can do that's created in the background. And it's just that having enough to share that gets people talking and actually coming to speak to us all.
And just between you and me, Sarah, because no lenders listen, how do you think lenders have done generally? Do you think the lender-broker relationship has still been strong, or are there some issues there with certain lenders around maybe the odd one dual pricing? Do you feel that you're getting listened to enough as a broker?
I definitely feel we get listened to. I also feel, though, that it's really hard being a broker. And this year, the people that have had to rewrite business, they're having to work 3 times, 4 times as hard for the same bit of money. So the margins were squeezed anyway for mortgage broker firms and mortgage brokers. And now that, if you're looking at value for your time, some brokers will look at that and go, oh my God, I was paid less than minimum wage to do this, and I've been stressing and staying up late cases, and actually I was paid less than if I worked at Tesco. And my fear there is I don't want to lose talent from the industry. I don't want people to check out of the industry and the broking community. And this is where we've got to be careful with the tech conversation, because we don't want to lose people because they assume there's not going to be value in them being here, or that they're going to lose their jobs. And I think that is an issue that people do worry about, what their career looks like here. And has it got longevity, or, are we all going to go extinct? And I think it's really important that we really push that agenda and show people that we do need good talent here. We need young talent as well, and people that are going to take this to social media and really communicate to people that we can't get to. I think it's all really important. But yeah, from a broker's perspective, I think the sharp rate pulls, I get it. Lenders' margins are squeezed. And I always try and explain that to my team as well. Get the lender to talk to us more. Tell us what your pain points are. Tell us how your life looks, because we just see your emails come in, up, down, left, right. We don't know where we are. And every week's different. Can you tell us, how is it for you? Like Peter says, we have to check it 2-3 times a day. That's stressful. So let us humanize your experience, and then we can support you more. But I think it'd be mixed, if I'm honest. I think we know, we do feel we're listened to, but we also do feel that we're taken on a roller coaster ride constantly. And it's hard to give the team stability, and we're trying to give the client stability to help the market. So I think stability is what everyone needs, isn't it? But I think
if I was to sum it up, I'd say I think we're listened to. Sometimes I don't think we're valued properly. Paul, you sort of skirted all sides of this debate, haven't you?
Yeah, I see. I think it is easy to think like that as a broker, and but it's also easy to think that lenders live in ivory towers, and you can say that your arguments are right and wrong on both cases, very much dependent on who the lender is and what their general attitude is. I've worked at lenders, naming no names, a long time ago, where underwriters' phones would be ringing. Lisa's laughing. Lisa and I worked together a million years ago.
Right. Okay.
And underwriters' phones would be ringing. They'd just be sitting there looking at them. He's like, please answer the phone. Whereas, at Lambay, it was sort of a couple of rings in the end. Everyone was understood the value of that. And I think that circling back in respect of tech, and actually what Sarah was saying earlier, that about holistic advice, is that it is a bit of a cliche, but the tech needs to be there to actually support everyone through the process, whether it's the underwriters at the lender, the broker, or ultimately the client themselves. And with the broker-client relationship, the more tech that can support the broker in doing the bit of the job that the client doesn't need to see, the better. Because then, and again, circling back even more, all those years ago when I started in the industry, lenders didn't pay proc fees. And and to be fair, yes, there was a big payday on an endowment policy, and the system was different. But when all that went away, brokers stopped selling general insurance. So they stopped selling life cover. They stopped selling, accident, sickness, unemployment, that sort of thing. I know there was a big issue with PPI, and so there was a fear around that. But I think we're almost going full circle, that if the tech can enable the broker to spend more time with the client and be more holistic with the advice they're giving, and not feel pressured that they've just got to sort the mortgage and that's it, hopefully that income can start to rise again, because of this assistance from a tech perspective.
Lisa?
So Paul and I clearly have been in the industry probably a very similar length of time. So and things tend to come around.
I need to get you two out for a beer and
you don't need
all the proper stories, don't I?
So, I mean, look, when I came into the industry in the mid-'80s, you had top-up loans, you had low start mortgages.
That's how I bought my first house. Top up.
Yeah, you see. So HMC, if anybody's as old as I. But and I think you see things in cycles. So some of the innovation that's happened this year, the 5-year products with the 3-year ERCs, they have been around previously. Capped rates, I'm surprised they haven't made an appearance, but again, that's probably because of some of the legacy systems that are out there that can't manage them these days. But capped rates was a surprise that nobody jumped on that little bandwagon. Probably, I'm sure Peter will tell me that will be more to do with pricing than anything else. But I mean, from our own perspective at Market Financial Solutions, we actually are massively into innovation. So we launched a brand new product called Bridge Fusion this year, which is a hybrid between a bridging product and a longer term product, or mortgage product, if you will. So to try and assist, because we were getting feedback from brokers and landlords, and we listened to it and created a product off the back of it. And actually, if you look at the bridging stats for this year, they're actually up 25.5%. So it shows that bridging is really sort of becoming an integral cog, if you will, in the mortgage market. We've also diversified into commercial mortgages as well this year. So, and we've done that because we're starting to see landlords really diversifying, and I think that will change again as we move into next year. Renters' rights bill potentially being introduced as early as summer of next year. That can have some big impacts for landlords, especially the more accidental landlords in particular. If they do give notice, then not being able to rent it for 12 months, things like that. But what you'll probably see when when ASTs go and rolling contracts come in, again, you're going to see some diversification there and innovation, I think, from lenders. Lease agreements, different types of products coming out to accommodate how landlords will have to diversify to adapt and survive through things like that.
Interesting. So we've seen a new government come in. We've had their first budget, which has landed in an interesting way. We've seen the resulting increase in swaps. We've seen public sector pay awards. We've seen their massive plans to build 1.5 million homes. How do we think they're doing? Is it a work in progress? is it unfair for that they're having as much criticism as they are getting now? A recent poll suggested if a general election was was run tomorrow, it would be the Tories first, Reform second, and Labour third, which is worrying in itself. But I know, Sarah, from your point of view, I mean, Sir Keir is your new best mate, isn't he? So you've been. I know you've been to Downing Street to meet them. What sort of? And I know
before you start, is there like a ring camera on that door, Sarah?
No, there isn't. There's a doorman that opens.
Yeah,
there's
no lock or anything on it. Yeah, it's just a doorman. Yeah,
you can
try and break in if you want, Paul, but I think you'll be shot within about 30 seconds. Cat burglar Brett. So how do you get? What sort of sense do you get of? What was your sense actually meeting them and going there and etc.?
I mean, it was amazing to go. This is probably the first time I've spoken about it. So
I'm not jealous at all.
I haven't gone through.
Yeah, did you have to sign the Official Secrets Act or anything?
No. So yes, it was really good. I didn't have any. I didn't know I was going to meet him. Firstly, so I didn't have this huge build up, which was probably good. And I think actually just. I like to meet people and listen before I make any judgment to who they are. And I feel like hopefully people are identified. You just get a feel for someone when you're sitting next to them, talking to them, or you get a negative feel for someone, right? And I genuinely listened to what he had to say with open ears, is that the phrase? Like with an open mind. And after sort of hearing him talk about other sectors, that was even more fascinating because we talk about our sector all the time. And there was, the 1.5 million homes, I feel like I've spoke about it loads already. So I actually really loved hearing him talk about the NHS and how AI is going to improve wait times, then just all sorts of things that I was just fascinated by. I then went to sort of the plan for change speech. That was more interesting in some ways because it was watching how the press received the information and how they reacted to him. And they actually did quote exactly what you just said, which I found incredibly uncomfortable. I just thought, oh, my God, these people are savage. They do not care. And they stood up and said, here's like, what would you say to these people that basically think you're shit? And I'm like, oh, my gosh, like he's just put on a brilliant event for us and you're just being so disrespectful. That's me as a leader. I would find that really difficult. However, I liked his answer, and this is genuinely what I think, because I think, business leaders here that are listening as well, it's really hard to make change happen and to see the repercussions of that change quickly. So give him a chance. He's got to be given time, and the government have got to be given time to look at the situation, decide what they want to do, and then see it play out. So his response was, give me a chance, ask me again at the end of my time. I feel the 1.5 million time, we all think it's ambitious. He thinks it's ambitious, but I do feel a real sense that they are going to actually try and do it. And I think that will really help everything, help the sector. And it wasn't just about building, it's about the communities, making sure the infrastructure's there, making sure they're in the right places in the country. I don't know what my involvement in this is other than to listen and give my opinion, but I did feel it was genuine for whatever that's worth. And I do think that there lies a lot of the answers to the supply and demand issue and a lot of the issues that the country has in regards to housing. But as I've said to you privately, Monty, it's also about making sure people can afford to buy the houses that come on the market,
100%.
And making sure that that innovation exists, that there's schemes that exist, that affordability is supportive of that, and that we as mortgage advisors can actually get people the mortgages to get them in these homes and have people, be homeowners. And people really want that. They really do. It affects people's mental health so much when they don't own their own property. I see it all the time. And it's a huge thing. It's a huge milestone for people that so many people cannot achieve. So I was inspired by the whole information sort of that I was exposed to, be it from your everyday person that is struggling, choosing between gas and electric bills right this winter, having to actually choose that because of the cost of living. Like, it really took it down to the granular level where we heard from those people, and then took it to the top level, the people that can actually make changes. So I felt that I came away with a lot of inspiration for running my own business. So
yeah, that's really good. I find it, I do, in my interactions with them, I do feel like they are passionate about change, and they do want to make a change, and they need that time. I do worry that we've become a nation of fickle football fans, that, you know, new manager has come in, inherited a team that's struggling, and if they're not winning in 2 months' time or a month's time, and they're not top of the league, that everyone wants them sacked. And people pretty much forget what the last regime was like, and the madness in that. So I think people are too quick.
Sorry, I didn't. That you just reminded me that. But there's another thing I felt really impressed by, and that I like, is the mindset. The mindset. He kept calling people out on the negative mindset that assumes that nothing's going to happen. Roll your eyes, you know. And he basically said, no one trusts government anymore. No one believes us. No one trusts us. And this is a problem, that we are running a country of people that don't believe the government are any good ever. And that's what I'm up against. And I will try and change that. But it might not happen in this next 5 years, because the problem is deep. It's a deep problem. And I do think that's the case. I mean, even my reaction to people that are my family, my friends and family, how different people have reacted to me going there is fascinating, because, you know, you don't realise people get very emotional about the government and politics. And I've had my own family be strange and be like, you know, oh, you know, what do you think now of this person? And I'm like, well, can't we just celebrate the fact that I was invited for just a second?
Yeah.
Let's just sit there for a minute.
You're suddenly spokesperson for the Labour Party, and it's all your fault, Sarah.
Which I'm not meaning to do.
Get used to that. Get used to that.
One party or the other, genuinely. I'm not, you know, I'm listening. That's all I'm doing.
Peter, from your perspective as a lender, how have you found the change? Do you feel that they are going to deliver on some of this stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the last government was just kind of almost saying to lenders, look, you know, the housing problem is a lender problem, and we're going to come out with another scheme, and we're going to come out with another first-time buyer scheme, or we're going to come out with a mortgage guarantee, or we're going to come out with something else. And, you know, it's not the fact that there actually isn't enough housing. It's the fact that, you know, it's the lenders not doing something for the
great point.
You know, first-time buyers. And, you know, and we're sort of sitting there going, well, look, it's just not enough houses to buy. You know, this, you know, you can somehow shoehorn some more first-time buyers into the market somehow or other, or, you know, create some new Help to Buy scheme. But yeah, the reality is, if the more sort of first-time buyers you manage to wedge into the market, ultimately you're just pushing house prices up somewhere along the line by doing this. You know, the only way you're really going to solve this problem, and we kind of did it in, you know, different articles we wrote, was, you know, you've got to build some more houses sooner or later. And, you know, to Sarah's point, there was a huge amount of cynicism we see out there about, well, you know, you're not going to do it. There's not enough planning officers. There's not enough, you know, builders out there to do this. And, you know, I agree. There's a huge amount of problems. There's a huge amount of obstacles. But, you know, and I think even, you know, Keir said, you know, it's not going to be 1.5 million houses delivered evenly across a sort of a 5-year term. It's going to be back-ended towards, you know, the end of Parliament. But, you know, you've got to have these targets, and you've got to be ambitious. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve anything. And I think, you know, to your point, Monty, it is this kind of approach now that everybody wants to see everything delivered instantly. And, you know, you've got to give the guy time.
Lisa?
So,
Go on.
I'm really interested.
This is a party political broadcast.
And these opinions are my own. So I think I think first thing, obviously, the Labour's planning and infrastructure bill, it touches on the fact that they need and that they are going to put in place 300 new planning officers, which obviously has been paid for by foreign investors, stamp duty being increased to 7%. So supposedly some of that money will go into it. I would be cynical and say the 1.5 million homes, ironically, is the same as the 300 million the Conservatives said over 5 years. But so they're kind of equating to the same amount. I think stability, you're absolutely spot on, Sarah. There is a massive lack of it. And I think the consistent change of housing ministers doesn't help that, because we're double digiting, and every time, how on earth can you get consistency if you have got a new housing minister coming in with different ideas, like literally all the time? So I think some stability there. The fact that they are unlocking parcels of land, Help to Buy, you know, whether you're a pro or not of that, I mean, that has its own challenges in that lots of the planning applications from the big building firms obviously were for a specific type of property, because first-time buyers could afford much bigger properties. So they've had to reapply to enable smaller properties so that first-time buyers in our current climate can hit the affordability. And we've seen increases in 90+% LTVs in the recent stats that have just come out today. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think you're right. I think they need more time. Jumping on them on the first few months in power doesn't really help. The budget, whilst it obviously is going to get picked to bits by everybody, doesn't seem to have had quite as bad a negative impact as some people initially predicted. That said, what will it do for the purchase market and buy to let? We'll have to wait and see. As I say, there are some workarounds, but it still will impact. And if Scotland is anything to look at, when they increased that purchase to 6%, it basically killed the purchase market pretty much in the buy to let space in Scotland. So I think there's a lot of people that are quite apprehensive as to what impact that will have here in England. So yeah, there's a few bits there.
Paul, anything from you?
Well, I think the thing really, talking about affordability in line with house building, clearly we all know we need more houses. And in the press yesterday, the average house price in England is 8.6 times the average household income. Yeah, up from 4.4 really times in 1999,
wasn't it?
I mean, that's just crazy. Again, when I started out, I remember it was 3.25 plus 1 or 2.5 times joint. And look where we are now. And we all just look at that and just take it for granted. So something's got to be done to bring this down to a manageable, sustainable level. And I think going back to the points of house builders and stuff, we don't have the right amount or enough talented tradespeople to do this stuff. So we've got to start to train up these people like there's no tomorrow. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but it is needed. And plus the infrastructure. We'll talk about saying 1.5 million homes, but I think the infrastructure side of things just gets pushed down the road a bit. And if we don't have the right amount of hospitals for these, for the developments and schools and everything else, we've all seen it. I've lived in a new build.
Totally agree.
And the house itself was lovely, but the infrastructure around it was horrendous.
Totally agree with that. So, well, hopefully we'll have some long-term planning from the new government, and they're using the right language. This isn't a parliament plan. This is a 10-year plan, at least. So they're pinning their hopes on turning it around to get re-elected in 5 years, but we shall see. So well, I think I've got actually loads more questions, but we haven't got time for them. So I'm just going to say now from each of you, have you got a high and low point this year, and what final words of wisdom would you give to to people watching. Lisa.
Oh, God, put me on the spot.
I know. Well, I had to put someone on the spot, and you were my top right. So there you go. It's where the eyes naturally go, first of all.
Perfect. The high points, blimey. Well, I think the beginning of the year was a high point, first couple of months anyway. It was looking very promising, but obviously then it completely dissipated as we moved into the middle of the year. But I think we are looking as if we are heading in the right direction as we're coming up to the end of 2024. So, lending is up, which is good. So we're going to be up year on year by the looks of things, unless you think it's going to be less than 50.2 billion in the last quarter. But I think optimistically it will end higher than last year, which can't be a negative. And as we're moving into 2025, everything's moving in the right direction. Rates are potentially on the way down, albeit slower than everyone had hoped. We've got a budget that's bedding in, but actually having some positive effects. Trump, who knows? Let's wait and see. But at the moment, it seems to be pretty positive. We do have obviously some regulatory changes or legislative changes, easy for me to say, coming down the track that will impact next year. But overall, cautiously optimistic. Favourite saying of I think is what I would say for 2025.
Yeah. Paul?
I think low point really was, I caveat this by saying that I'm very cognizant that the country needed to raise more money to pay its bills. So I'm not anti increasing tax on its own, but I think the NI increase together with the threshold reduction for the tax levels, I think for small businesses was pretty bad. So I wasn't happy about that. That the duality of what happened. So for me, that was quite low. I think the positive side of things of this year was relaunching, as I say, a much loved brand back into the market in terms of private label. But I think moving forwards, as I touched on earlier, there's a heck of a lot of potential for remortgages, not only next year. I think I talking about next year, it's more like 37% of all mortgages are coming to the end of their fixed rates next year. So that's a massive opportunity for the market generally. But looking at those 4.4 million mortgage holders over the next few years that are going to need some assistance. So I think there is positivity there. And as we say, if the government does get its act together in respect of supporting new house building, that's got to be a positive thing as well.
Sarah?
Personal highs and lows are easier for me to answer, I think, but probably maybe not what you're looking for. Personal low, I would say some hard business lessons this year, in terms of the fact that when you're going through, I'd say, a storm, I still think we've been in a storm this year. As businesses, and running a business, cash flow, everything that goes into that, I still think 2024 has been challenging for us leaders, and we've had to hold a lot of weight for our teams. And I'm not sure everyone knows that, in the background, it's not something we all talk about, but that's definitely been a challenge. And I was hoping for it to be lighter, but it's definitely still been heavy. High point is that even within the storm, there are moments of opportunity that have come up for me that have given me so much joy, so much light, so much excitement for the industry and for where it can still go, and the opportunities for all of us within this that choose an industry, that choose a career in this industry. I think it's really expansive space at the moment, and I think that's what I'm realizing is actually we don't just take up a pocket of the country. We are so important to everything, and everything streamlines through this industry. And so actually there's so much that we can do here. So even in the hard times, I've realized that this year. So I'm looking forward to next year when there's not such a big storm hanging over everything and not such a dark cloud to run their businesses in. Imagine how much light there's going to be then and how much excitement. So, yeah.
Cool. Good. Thank you. And Peter?
High and low are both political, but they're not political with probably a small p. Probably the change of government over here, because of the sense it's given a a sense of direction finally. I mean, everyone sort of thinks very short term in terms of the chaos that was around before, in terms of where the markets were going and the uncertainty. So, you know, whatever you think of the government, at least it's created a sense of direction now, despite, you know, some of the short term measures which may be unpopular. And probably the low was probably Kamala Harris's election campaign, which she seemed to think she was going to get elected by celebrity endorsements and promising people, you know, someone said and lollipops. So as a result, we've ended up with Trump, which was probably going to be interesting. May not be the disaster everyone thinks it's going to be. So, you know, the market seemed to be liking his re-election because of the fact he's very business friendly. So yeah, it's going to be I think 2025 is looking very positive from a market perspective. I think we're going to get some positive house price inflation. I think we're going to get a lot more transactions. I think things, you know, set to look fair because of obviously, you know, falling bank base rates. Affordability looks, you know, pretty good. We've had static, you know, low house prices for the last 2 years, and obviously people's wages have gone up as a result. So I think things, you know, look very positive from a mortgage perspective. And if we have a stable economy and a growing economy, or slightly growing economy, I think, you know, it gives people at least some confidence to buy, which is what the market needs.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. I think that's our longest one yet. We are definitely out of time. So thank you very much to our guests. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Paul. That's it for this year. We are not back next week or the week after. We may be back next year. Who knows? I don't know. Remember, you can listen to all of these on Spotify. And do remember to check out Newspage. So whether you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Diwali, the winter solstice, or simply enjoying the cozy embrace of the season, have a very good break. If you've enjoyed this, I've been Andrew Montlake. If you haven't, I've been the new Treasurer of Reform, Nick Candy. Until next time, have a great winter break.